Well, hello everybody. I'm just going to give everybody give a couple of minutes for people to work their way over. I'm seeing so far about 18 people, and it's climbing. So we'll wait till it gets to about 60, and then get started. I tell you what, we might want to do actually is just like if you just attended the first couple of sessions, by now you're probably feeling a bit stiff. You might want to get up and have a stretch. I'm going to get up and have a stretch so you see my big fat midriff. Yay! There you go. If I do my flies up. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we're up to about 20. We'll give it a few more seconds. Where are we at? What's the time here? Yeah, I think we're gonna just wait a little bit longer, because I think people are gonna try to get here. So bear with us a second. So Kelly, where are you right now?
I'm in Palm Springs.
Yeah, what are you up to? You took a couple of weeks off, right?
I did, yes, and I'm at the tail end of the holiday here.
You have a nice time?
Yeah, it's very nice. Palm Springs is very different from Virginia.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, stuff. Yeah. How about you, Ben? Where are you based?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
excellent. All right, great. Well, I think we're going to give it. I think folks are sort of wondering what to do right now. I can see the number went up to about 21 and then dropped down a bit, so people are waiting what to do. I think the best thing would be to wait and start on time. Anybody got any good jokes? Any clean ones, please? I can't think of any right now. So, as I was mentioning to you guys beforehand, folks who were in the demand gen session, it was interesting how many people wanted to talk about ABM.
Mm-hmm.
And there were lots of questions about intent data that came up. There was one question about actually what platforms are people using.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody using demand base, 6 Sense, etc. So we talked a little bit, touched on it a little bit, but we're definitely going to dive in more on that. But I do want to wait until till it's 12:30 Eastern time to get started, because I can see people starting to come in, but we're not quite at the level we were for the other ones, and I want to give people a chance to join. The other thing that was interesting was the main focus of the demand gen topic was about the shift from quantity to quality.
Yeah.
And, the sense that I was getting from the panelists and from the chat that was going on was that people are moving there really quickly. And I remember we had a discussion about it in the Healthtech Marketing Network earlier. It's probably about 6 months ago now. And it was a sense that sort of the back end of 2023, marketing leaders were starting to move in that direction, but we're not there yet. Yeah. What do you guys see in terms of that shift from quantity to quality?
It's something we've focused on.
You've been there a while, though, right? You've been doing that. Yeah. By the way, anybody who's joining right now is wondering what's going on. The last session finished a bit early, so we're just kind of giving everybody a chance to join in, and we're going to wait and give it another minute. I can see the numbers of attendees increasing, but I think
we've got some nice comments already. What folks are looking for, Muriel and Derek, what they're looking.
Yeah,
hoping we'll discuss, and we'll definitely cover that.
So Derek, what are you guys doing with ABM? Put it in the chat. What platform are you using, and how far along are you? By the way, I know the answers because I know Derek.
And while he's putting that in, Adam, your question around focus of, it's all about marketing spend. Over the last 3 years, marketing spend has gotten tighter and tighter. I think everybody's seen that. And so where's the budgets, where the dollars going? And, focused spend and focused on really in-market accounts. We'll talk more about it in the session, but I think, that's why you're seeing the interest that you are here. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, as a business, we've been doing ABM since we started 4 years ago. And I would say that 4 years ago, everything we were doing was around education.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not. Now it's absolutely about, okay, how do I do it? Like we're trying it, we're doing a little bit, we've had some false starts, and that's not what's going on now.
So it's demand-based, Derek. That's good.
Demand-based. There you go. So, here was Derek. So we've already got an additional panelist. Derek, thank you very much. Checks in the post. Appreciate your feedback there. All right. So we're starting to see more people come into the session now. Okay. So let's get started. For those of you who haven't attended the previous session, my name's Adam Chirinis. I'm the CEO of Health Launchpad, and we're the presenter of today's Marketing Summit. And today's topic is all about using ABM to drive complex sales. And I want to give a big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Tenon. We have our CEO and founder of Tenon here. Rather than me talk about Tenon, Brennan, tell everybody a little bit about Tenon.
Yeah, glad to, Adam. Yeah, thanks for having me, and great to see you again, Kelly. My name is Ben Pearson, CEO and co-founder of Tenon. Tenon is bringing really enterprise marketing into a cohesive enterprise platform built on ServiceNow. And as a previous CMO, running global marketing teams is complex. How do we simplify that? How do we manage the full life cycle of marketing campaigns? And that's what we're doing. Certainly glad to share more if people are interested. Thanks, Adam.
Great, thank you. And the other co-sponsor of the event is HIMSS. I'm sure you all know HIMSS. It's the largest member-based society in healthcare technology, and in addition to global conference and other events, they also have a large media organization where I'm sure they work with many of you guys in terms of doing brand awareness building and lead generation and all that great stuff. And we're always, we're very grateful to our relationship with HIMSS. They've been a partner for a lot of what we do for about 3 years now. What we're going to talk about today is ABM in practice. And so to do this, I invited Kelly and Ben to join me today because they're two folks who've been practicing ABM for 3, 4, 5 years now. Mm-hmm. And honestly, there are two people who I've learned an awful lot about ABM from. And have been involved. Ben and I wrote a book on it called Total Customer Growth. And Kelly has been on several podcasts with me on the Healthtech Marketing Show. And every time I talk to Ben and Kelly, I learn something new. Just a couple of housekeeping points. Yes, this session is being recorded. We'll share the recordings for all of the sessions early next week. We'll then be publishing this as a podcast. We'll be taking the transcript and turning that into a blog post. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of revisit what we're going to talk about today. We really want your questions. So use the chat. I see people putting where they're located right now. I always love watching the chat within the chat. There's always good discussions going on between people. Really encourage you to do this. ABM, intent data, all of that good stuff came up very heavily in the demand generation session earlier on. So if you attended that session, this is an opportunity to maybe get some of those questions answered that we really only touched on. So with that, I'd like our two speakers to introduce themselves. Kelly, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Kelly McDermott, CMO of Caregility. We are a telehealth solutions provider. We work with hospital systems across the United States and internationally. We're supporting well over 5 million virtual care sessions a year now for those hospitals. My background, I started out in sales actually, and was in sales for about 10 years and was very frustrated with what I was getting from marketing back then, and ended up doing my own marketing. And what I discovered was a passion for marketing. And so ended up jumping over the fence to the marketing side. And I think my background in sales gives me a good perspective and helps understand and help with the alignment of sales and marketing, which is critical for success in an ABM approach to marketing. So it's a little bit about me.
Great. Ben, how about you?
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. I did share a little bit about Tenon. So as I mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tenon. Prior to Tenon, I was a CMO, like Kelly. I worked for a healthcare technology company and ran a global marketing team. And ABM was the foundation we stood up. It truly was the way we marketed from both sales and marketing and SDRs. We completely transformed how we went to market. And we'll talk more about that strategy. It truly was a top-down, enterprise-wide strategy shift. I know many organizations struggle with getting ABM off the ground. In many cases, it's truly because of a lack of alignment. And so really excited to talk about this topic today. As Adam mentioned, him and I co-wrote the book Total Customer Growth, where we in detail outline how to get started with ABM and where to go with it. So certainly check that out. But yeah, thanks for having me, Adam.
Great. So glad you're both here. So with that, I'd like to set the table a bit and share a couple of slides which I think kind of explain the value of ABM and like why actually we're doing ABM. So let me just show the first point is what's called the 95-5 rule. And this is something which it's been around a while, but it's worth revisiting. And the basic premise of it is that in business to business, companies tend to change their software and services firms on average every 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's probably longer in healthcare, but let's go with 5 years for now because it works. What that means that in any given year, only 20% plus or minus of your target accounts will be in market. And the second thing is that means that within any given quarter, only 5% of your accounts will be in market. So that means that in any given quarter, right now, you've got a target account list of 1,000 companies, only 50 of them are likely to be in market. So that means as a marketer, one of your main jobs is to figure out who's actually in market. The second issue is, and there's a lot of data on here, but let me explain some things here. First of all, average B2B healthcare life cycle in health tech is over 13 months. In some cases, it's 19 months plus. And the buyer collective, on average, a minimum of 5 people involved. And in many cases, we've all seen 10, 20, 30 people sometimes involved in the whole process. And they go through 3 stages. They define the problem. They define how they're going to solve that problem, and then they go out and talk to vendors. So here's the issue, and this is some great new data from 6 Sense. Mm-hmm. Buyers are 70% of the way through their journey before they contact sellers directly. 78% of buyers say that they've defined their requirements by the time they talk to a seller. But here's the real killer. 84% of buyers end up purchasing from the first company they reach out to. And that doesn't mean that they're just lazy and it's sort of like, okay, they talk to the first company and they like what they say, so they think we'll go with those guys. It's not that. It's that when they go out and reach out to a vendor, they've pretty much made up their mind who they're going to go with. So what that means as marketers, and this is why ABM is so important, is that we've got 2 really big questions to answer. Who's in market right now? And how can you be the first company that they call? And that's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on right now. So, let's start with let's start with where ABM fits into the businesses that you're involved with? What are the problems that you're trying to solve, Kelly? Sorry, I think we're going to start with Ben here first, with that where ABM fits in with your current business or with the business, the Healthtech business you work with.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Adam. The short answer is, you said it right there, is how do you make sure that your brand, your name, your company is top of mind for the people as they're getting into market, and you're focused on the right, ideal customer profile that are right now looking for your solution, right? And so, as right now in my new company, most people don't know we exist, and so they're out looking at Monday.com and Asana and 15 other tools. And so for me, how do I make sure that Tenon is a brand that they know about? At Nuvolo, my last company, was managing marketing. My challenge there, Adam, was they didn't buy for 10 years. It was a 10-year sales cycle of re-reviewing technology in healthcare. And so if I didn't catch that client at that 10-year mark, I might not get that shot again for another 10 years. And so making sure that I know which accounts are in market, actively looking at competitors, actively looking at key topics that are relevant to what I'm trying to sell is really important, and being front of mind with ads and with key content at that time is really important. The second piece of that is around, like, how do I not only manage and get in front of them, but how do I accelerate sales cycles? I think a lot of folks that are on, I see a few folks that said they're in long, lengthy B2B sales cycles. How do you compress the sales cycle? Because most of the time you're also dealing with very large buying teams. I know, Kelly, in your world, you're dealing with very large buying teams where it's 10, 15 or more people involved to make a decision. And so that's the other piece of that, which can actually help, minimize or shorten that time to sell. The last piece I'll mention then, Kelly, I'll open it up to you for your thoughts, is really around my spend. I think I talked about it kind of when people were coming in. Marketing budgets are not getting bigger. They're getting tighter. They're under more scrutiny these days. And so how do I make sure that every dollar I'm putting out there, I can point back to a return? I can say specifically that we ran this campaign that resulted in this much pipeline and this much revenue, and be able to actually make sure I'm focusing my spend on accounts that are right now in market. And so those are my big buckets. I mean, Kelly, I'm sure you have a lot more you'd love to add there.
No, I think you touched certainly a higher ROI, being able to, justify the marketing spend is important. We're all, I don't know a single marketing team that doesn't feel like they could, wish they had 3 or 4 more people on their team. We're all resource strapped. So being able to, be very, very efficient in the use of everyone's time, because you are working with those targeted accounts, and then helping with the sales and marketing alignment, which is critical, right? Particularly in these longer sales cycles, and ensuring that there is a good relationship between those two teams. There's ongoing communication back and forth, and that you're helping the sales team stay focused on the accounts that count, right?
Absolutely. Okay. So, I think if you ask 5 ABM practitioners, what's the definition of ABM, you'll get 5 variations on a theme. From your perspectives, though, what do you think are kind of the key principles of ABM? Kelly, let's start with you.
I would say data-driven decision-making is one of the most important. The insights that you gain from implementing an ABM platform or program are invaluable. I would rather, you were talking quality versus quantity earlier, I would rather have 5 really qualified leads than 50, suspects that we now have to try and nurture. So getting that insight and that data is one of the key principles. The ROI focus, particularly, we as marketers now have to be accountable for every dollar we spend. The sales and marketing alignment, and also understanding the life cycle of the sale. And what ABM allows you to do is gain insight into, okay, and I think we'll talk about this with the graphic a little bit later. You graph enough of the sales cycles, you begin to understand and do some predictive analytics you couldn't do before, that makes you far more efficient as a marketer and as a salesperson. And then that will shorten that sales cycle, like Ben is talking about, the goal of always making the sales cycle as short as possible, which is still long in healthcare sometimes.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
What do you see as the key principles?
I mean, the entire alignment, I will maybe talk about it more, but like it should be all the way to the CEO and depending on the size of your organization. Not only should it be alignment between a CRO or head of sales and a CMO, your CEO should be on board. Like this should be company-wide alignment so that we look at this not just from a net new logo or a current land and expand, but it also should be customer success and other parts of the business that should also play a role in this. Kelly, you made a really good point about data. And it's looking at data that marketing previously didn't really have access to or didn't really even look at. Now I'm a technologist. I came up through IT roles. Like that's what had me so interested in ABM when I became a CMO. This is leveraging technology and data and insights to be able to make better decisions before they're at your website, before they're engaging in LinkedIn and social media channels. And so, for us, it's going after what they call the dark funnel, where we're getting into areas that we can tap into so that we're now starting the process. It used to be this wide net we'd cast and then figure out who goes to our website and then figure out who gets to engage in social. Yeah. So that's the important piece there, Kelly, is you're right. I'm now spending money, not wasting time on this wide net. I'm spending time on the accounts that are already showing engagement prior to hitting our website or interest.
So interesting. There's a couple of questions here that I'll bring in a second. But before I do that, I noticed neither of you mentioned personalization. And so when a lot of people talk about ABM, personalization is one of the top principles. How do you see what you do as a practitioner of ABM being more personalized in your outreach?
Yeah, you want to take it,
Kelly? Sure. Because we're able to see what are they searching on, and it goes more than just, these are the pages they went to on our website. It's the search terms, and this is what they did when they were leaving and stuff like that. So, and where they went to other sites. So we're able to then make sure that we're putting both advertising in front of them that's relevant and driving them to conversion pages, as well as our SDRs when it's appropriate and they've been interacting with us enough, reaching out to them and sending them like white papers or case studies or things that would be relevant to them where they are in the sales cycle right now.
You bring up a really good point, Kelly. And I think there's some questions in the chat regarding this specifically. Personalization is absolutely key. And Kelly, you mentioned we think about SDRs. Like when I was running a 25-person SDR team, an SDR did not reach out to an account that was not showing any intent. Like that was step number one. They'd pull up their intent dashboard. They'd see the accounts that are engaging in some form of intent. And then they would be sending personalized messaging based on those high intent accounts. And that would be completely personalized by the SDRs to those accounts, to the persona with specific content. I'll also mention that it's not just about that initial lead, that initial account that you're reaching out to. It's also about through the entire sales cycle personalization, providing the right content at the right time throughout the sales cycle as well. And so that's just another piece of data, Adam, as we think about some of that, personalization, not just front, but all the way through the process.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like it does increase the amount of content, of messages, and you need to do. There's a question here, actually, I would like to get this one in now, which is from Chris Suto, which is, can you talk about the necessary tech stack that supports your successful ABM efforts? And actually, I would answer it two ways. One is, what do you use? What do you think, good looks like? And then the other thing is, do you need tech? Do you need a tech stack to do ABM? What's the minimum?
Go ahead,
I can't imagine not having a tech stack and trying to do ABM. I don't know how you would do it because it's a critical component. We use Demandbase as our ABM platform. We have Salesforce as our CRM, and then we use like Zoom Info and a couple other like data systems as well. Demandbase is a great platform. It is not inexpensive, and there is an implementation and a learning curve to it. Once you get it rolling, though, it's very effective.
Yeah, for sure. And Kelly, your tech stack's very similar to what I was using. I evaluated 6sense. 6sense is a nice tool. Bombora data is really a lot of the intent data. I actually contracted directly with Bombora, fed that data directly into Salesforce. That took a little bit of work with marketing operations, but what we were able to do then is take intent data. I also use Terminus as well to do display ads, including ads to connected TV and Spotify. That's just another thing that I was using during COVID to reach my buyers that were not in an office. And so we're reaching them at home. So
that's really cool.
yeah, it's really cool tech. And, once you see intent, you can start to engage. But again, my whole point was, let's make it really easy for sales. That includes SDRs, which, by the way, SDRs in long sales cycles, in my case, reported to marketing. And long sales cycles in my mind is, 6-8 months and longer. The shorter sales cycles, I have no issue with SDRs reporting to sales. But my point is, on the tech stack, you're going to want to have some level of tech to manage that intent data. And that is Demandbase, 6 Sense, Terminus, and Bombora has the data directly. So plenty of those out there. And then you can also
we actually use a platform called Propensity, which is pretty inexpensive. It's not as full function as 6 Sense or Demandbase, but we're pretty pleased with the results and its ease of use. And we do that because it means that we can, it makes it easier for our clients. It's almost like providing them with training wheels, and then they can move on to, they can either license Propensity directly or go move up to Demandbase, which is multiples more expensive, but has more features. Early on, when we were doing ABM with clients, we would actually not use the tech stack at all. We might use Bombora data separately to figure out who might be in market, and then use that to filter out the accounts. But then what we do is we'd measure the engagement through LinkedIn advertising. So there are ways to do it semi-manually, but if you want to scale it, you are going to need to invest in one of those things. Sure. So let's move on. I mean, there are some really good questions coming up that we'll get to at the end. But what I want to do is I want to switch over to, what does ABM look like when it's working? And I think we're going to start with you, Kelly. Do you want to talk? You had a slide you wanted to show at some point.
Yeah, you've got the slide, Adam. I think you showed it, the graphic.
Yes.
If you just want to show that, I think this speaks a little bit to when it's working. And this is part of an article that I co-wrote with Adam that you can find on our LinkedIn profiles. But what this shows is, in the very beginning, a single individual interacting with us and with Demandbase. And then as the sales cycle progressed, you could see where we marked, this is when more people started getting involved, when we got our first conversion, and then the number of individuals in the buyers group as it grew through the sales cycle. Once the salesperson and the SDR got involved, the number of meetings and such, and then, ultimately when the opportunity closed for a mid-6-figure amount. But this is the sort of insight that really helps justify the investment in whatever technology you need in order to do, your ABM program. And it helps give both sales and marketing insight into what the sales cycle looks like. And as you are able to recreate this over several different types of sales, you begin to see the patterns that emerge and begin to understand. And that's when we get a little bit into the predictive analytics I was talking about, where you can almost start to predict what's going to be happening in the next sales approaches.
What I love about this chart is the blue spikes are what them hitting your website, right? Yeah. So early on, you're seeing a lot of traffic coming from, and that's first party intent, right? And then, but it's only one person. And then suddenly, a little group's come. Is this a buyer collective? I bet you're asking yourself. And I think that the orange is people downloading stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. The orange is, there's the code is under. I've got the wrong glasses on, and I'm sorry. But you'll see the code at the bottom, the different colors and what they mean.
Oh yeah, I can barely read. Okay, so that's I
should have made it bigger.
Yeah, never mind. Anyway, but what I love about it is that you start to see the people coming, and and as you go through the journey, more people show up on your website, more individuals. So you just see the herd moving towards you, and you can change up. And that's why it goes back to the notion about personalization, because if you say, hey, these guys are really engaged, we now need to be putting conversion messages in front of them. Now is the time for the SDRs to reach out to them. And that's always a key issue, which is when do you get them to do it? And you can then start to figure out, they are sales ready. Okay, sales, you need to get talking to these guys because they're ready to buy. And I love that at the end of it, you suddenly see all the influencers coming in, right? Everybody else who's sort of, going to be asked for their opinion on the selection shows up. And that's always a great buying sign, right? Because it says they're in even if they're not saying, you're on the short list, or even if not saying we're actually going to be choosing you, if you're starting to see more people from a company hitting your website, that shows that you looks like you're going to get this deal. So I just love this slide. All right, Ben. What about you? What does good look like? What does bad look like? You in your experience.
I'll still go back to alignment. I think there's been some good questions around data, and it actually does tie nicely into alignment. Getting salespeople to change their processes and go to other tools can be really hard. And so alignment is so important between marketing and sales to make this successful. So not just the SDRs should be looking at an ABM dashboard every day, but they should be peered up and looking together with their account executives on a regular interval. And it should be a team sport, right? They should be working together, aligning on the accounts that are showing intent, aligning on the approach and personalization. Like that is what good looks like. What doesn't look good is where you aren't aligned, or you're finding one part of the business is going one direction, the other is going a different. And so Adam, it's alignment is still, I think, one of the biggest areas. And then what does good look like? It's a result of higher pipeline, faster close rates, more revenue in the business. I mean, it's the things that really all of us wake up and care about every single day as we have our commitments to the business to deliver on those metrics from a revenue perspective, and be able to point back that these are the ABM campaigns we ran. This was the pipeline result, and this was the revenue result. Success drives success in an ABM program. So,
So here's a great comment from Kira Smith here, which is it's tough. I mean, I agree. I think in every ABM program we've ever done, where we struggle the most is that alignment point.
Yes.
How do you do? I mean, so what are some of the techniques you both use to get that alignment?
One of the most, I think, important things for a successful ABM program is to have the SDR function as the intermediary between marketing and sales, because a buyer will be there and they'll be showing all the right signs and gaining, whatever your point system is or whatever to earn that call. It's hard to turn that over to an outside salesperson and say, now get excited and go after this, because there's still nurturing that needs. You want to communicate with that individual. You want to give them the information they need. And that's where the SDR comes in. And so at Caregility, our SDRs are very closely aligned with the SAMs, which is what we call our outside team. And they strategize in weekly meetings. They talk about the accounts. What does the intent data look like? What should we be doing? What should we send them? And that is what I really think helps with that sales and marketing alignment is that intermediary role.
Right.
I agree.
So maybe we should talk a little bit about how this changes the sales model. And I would just to start off with probably one of the most controversial issues in ABM. Should SDRs report to sales or marketing? Kelly, you've obviously report.
They did report to me. I started the SDR program. I think a lot of it has to do with I have a sales background. So I was able to start up the SDR program, provide training, and build the team up and understand from a sales perspective what's involved. But just recently we made a decision to have the SDR team now move over and start reporting into, we have an SDR manager and he's doing a great job, but they are reporting into the sales side. But we're still very, very closely aligned. And I think it's because it started on the marketing side. So I think it can work either way, depending on, I think it depends on how much does the marketing team understand about the necessity for sales follow up and just the sales background, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I have a pretty strong opinion, Kelly. Unlike you, I long sales cycles, 6 months plus, SDR should be tied into marketing, in my opinion. It's not just getting a meeting; it's maintaining that relationship throughout. Adam, I think one comment I'll make around back to that sales and marketing alignment is it is hard to get sales and marketing to align, but it's a trust thing. It's a trust thing around the data. Does sales trust the intent data? Do they trust the signals they're seeing? I'll give you a specific example. I was in a direct compete. We were competing with 3 other major competitors. And all of a sudden we found intent during the sales cycle. This company started looking at another low-cost competitor. And that intent data showed that. And we didn't realize that we're up against this low-cost player. Completely changed the way that sales operated the rest of the sale. We won the deal. But had the salesperson not known and used that intent data to realize that we all of a sudden were going up against an entirely new competitor that we weren't even realizing, all of a sudden now they were bought in. This is real data. This is something that changes the way they sell, that now allows them, and it truly is a trust thing. Because initially sales will say, I don't know if this is real. I don't know if this intents what this is yet. And that takes some time, and that takes proving it through some pretty complex sales cycles. But I'm a big fan of SDRs reporting to marketing for, like I said, long sales cycles, short sales cycles, 1-2 months. Put SDRs with sales, let them transact. If that's the way your business runs, certainly put them there. But that's
right. There's a conversation going on in the chat about CRM and the role of sales. I want to actually bring it in because I think it's very pertinent to this conversation. So a question here from Amy, and this is Amy Hones from Harmony Health IT. Hi, Amy. And she's asking Stacy Sand from Get Well. Hey, Stacy, how you doing? Stacy actually, I think is implementing ABM, I think, with maybe using demand based. I could be wrong. And so there's a question from Amy to Stacy, which is, Amy, is there enough impact to prove it out when we use an unpopular CRM? So we'll be using an ABM tool without integration until we upgrade our CRM. So the question is about, the impact that it has on sales. And here was Stacy's response here, which is, I think that, you feed integrate account intent data into wherever sales is doing their account planning. If it's not the CRM, then ask sales what they're using to do account growth planning. It could be a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really, really great insight. Thank you, Stacey. You're now an honorary panelist. And I think the key thing is that, intent data is not a silver bullet, right? It's not perfect, but it is a good, potential signal that there's interest from a buyer. Get it. If you can get it in front of the salespeople in some way, it will help them make decisions. Ultimately, you do want it, to Ben's point, to be integrated into where they do their work. You don't want the salespeople to have to go log into demand base or Extense or Propensity or whatever. You want it to feed into where they're doing their work. So next question. It's a lot of work. It's a big lift. A lot of we see a lot of companies think about moving on ABM for multiple years, and I understand why. I really empathize. Is it worth the squeeze? Is the ROI there? Who wants to take that first? Kelly, you want to have a go at that?
Sure. I would say absolutely it's worth the investment. I was very fortunate. I had, it's critical. And I think, Ben, you mentioned this before, buy-in from the very top. I've had the support of our CEO, Ron, the president, Mike, saying, we're going to invest in this platform, and it's going to take a while before we really start to see, the fruits of our labor. But it has certainly proven itself to be an excellent investment, but it does take time, like I said, to get it up and running, to get everybody on the same page. And you're never done, right? You're always tweaking it. Things are changing, and so it's an ongoing commitment.
It sure is, Kelly. And I always recommend start small. I mean, Adam, you've seen it too. I mean, don't try to go after all your ICPs, all your areas that you're targeting. Pick a small segment. Pick a very small targeted segment, whether it be maybe it's a key account, maybe it's a one-to-one account you're trying to close, maybe it's a small one-to-many account that you're trying to look at. Really narrow down that initial scope, and that's going to allow you to define your goals of your ABM pilot. Start there. It's absolutely worth it, Adam, because, and Kelly, like, ABM becomes over time the way you run sales and marketing. I mean, it is the foundation of how you run sales and marketing. Like we stopped doing all this widespread. Like we actually turned off a lot of PR, and I know PR still plays roles, but I turned off a lot of other spend to put my spend in this bucket. I put a lot of eggs in this play, and it paid off. And we were able to point directly back to pipeline and revenue, specifically related to the fact that every phone call, every outreach, every initiative we were taking was based on using intent data specifically.
We've got some really good questions, which I think are very relevant to this notion of like, where do you get started? So this question here from Megan Williams, which is, what are some of the top signs the team is ready to launch into ABM? And I took the counter is that I've talked to many clients who've said, yeah, we're just not ready for it yet. I know what ABM looks like. We're not ready to do it. What is it? What would you advise anybody watching this as a sign of like, yeah, you're ready to do it, or what you need to do to be ready to do it?
Yeah, Kelly, I'm glad to jump in and listen.
Yeah, go ahead, Anala.
Sure. I mean, for me, Adam, there's prerequisites to be ready. I mean, do you fully understand your ICP, your ideal customer profile? Do you have content that will support that? And we talked about a need for content. That's certainly a big area. I also encourage you to make sure you have a strong MarOps, marketing ops, or sales ops person in your team. I do encourage you to, and we talk about technology a little bit here, having a great sales ops, rev ops, marketing ops person that can help pull it together was critical for me personally in getting that running. But I think for us is like, what are the prerequisites to turning an ABM program on? Content is a big one, and targeted content, personalized content for your ICP is as I see it, is a prerequisite for sure.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say, Ben. We knew who our target market was. I've got a great content writer, Jess, who has developed some really phenomenal content, and Heidi, our marketing operations person, can make our systems sing when we need to. So those are three critical. And again, the support from the top down.
Really interesting question here from Muriel Herrera. If you have a list of accounts you want to target, but lack an ABM platform, would that be considered marketing to a target list? I'm trying to set up internal expectation because everybody refers to it as ABM light due to our lack of platform. What I like about what she's focused on, a list of accounts, right? A list of target accounts, because you guys both mentioned that. What would you advise her?
Well, I guess my question would be, if you lack the platform and you're targeting these accounts, do you have a way of understanding how they're interacting with you? If you don't have any insight into whatever it is that you're doing to those accounts, other than if they send you an email, then I wouldn't say that that's even ABM light. You really need to, it's the insight to the data that makes any type of ABM effort effective.
Exactly right. Yeah, I always ask, like, where'd you get the list? Like, how'd you come up with the list? What insights help you build that list? If there's no insights, then you're not doing ABM. Maybe there were people that engaged at a trade show or an event you put on. So maybe there's some level of intent. So maybe there's that. But if you're just pulling a list, we talked about earlier, that list has accounts in there that may not be in a buying cycle for 5-10 years. And so then you're just going back to the old ways of not using ABM and not using intent.
I find it is, we very often we'll start an ABM engagement and be asked, sort of given a list by a client. So, well, how did you come up with that list? And there's like, they're the biggest companies. Like, okay, are they already, are they all likely to buy from you? Well, I don't know, but they're the ones we want. It's like, it's a wish list.
Exactly.
A wish list is not the right place to start.
No.
one thing we advise is, look, if you're starting with, the kind of notion of one to many, which is like, you maybe start, like we're doing an ABM program for a client where we're starting with 2,000 accounts. Now, is that ABM? It's probably more intent-based demand generation, but what we're trying to do is segment the list based on intent, based on, are they coming to the website? Are they engaging with advertising? And what you then do is dynamically then filter those accounts down to a shorter list that are giving you buying signals. So you might get down from 2,000 to 300. That then becomes more manageable in terms of targeting. And then from those 300, can you get down to 30 that are really interested, that are showing sort of the type of pattern that Kelly was showing early on. So there are lots of ways to Muriel, to your point, there are, it's the beginning of a journey, but you're probably kind of on, maybe it's at stage 0. Before we go to any more questions, I do want to ask you sort of, one question which you started to touch on. So if you're doing ABM, what are the must do's? What are the things that you absolutely must do? Kelly, you want to try that first?
Sure. I guess you must understand what it's going to take to implement and support the ABM, and have a realistic expectation, because it isn't like, you just turn it on and stuff. So there is labor, there is time, involved in that. So it's really important is to set those expectations up front when you're evaluating platforms and, talking to references. I would say, get realistic information from other customers. How long did it take you to get it up and running and implement it? When did you start seeing, the value? What are some of the things you wish you had done or known about first? And really get that information so that you're just kind of coming in fully aware of that. And then you're level setting expectations within the organization. And then also understanding, okay, once we start getting that intent data, what are we going to do with it? Do we have the content, to Ben's point earlier? Do we have the content? Do we have an intermediary like an SDR? If we don't have SDRs and we are going to be feeding them right to the sales team, we level set their expectations on, hey, you're going to need to approach this differently, but we're going to be with you, work with you every step of the way. And then how are you going to get the right reporting out, so that you're able to do the data analysis and then present the ROI, and and as it gets better and better, the longer you use it. Ben, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, that last one's really big for sure, Kelly. Like, you're setting your goals, but making sure that you're defining how you're measuring success, because we talked about it earlier, right? You're going to get executive buy-in. You're going to start a small pilot. You're going to define your goals and objectives, and then you're going to measure it. And again, that's sales and marketing alignment. And so because you're going to do that small pilot, you're going to show the results. You're going to share that back with the executives and your peer CRO. And then from there, you're going to start to scale it, assuming that was successful, or try something different. That's another thing we haven't really talked about, is you may try that first pilot and may not be successful. There were certain industries and ICPs that I was selling to that ABM actually we struggled a little bit with it. It was a low technology adopter business unit. And so stay agile, stay adaptive, find different ways, try something else. So I do encourage you to not give up after your first pilot, try a couple different methods as well there. Yeah.
Great. Well, folks, first of all, Kelly and Ben, thank you so much. You've been, I really appreciate the candor, the sort of you've really been transparent about everything that your experience is so useful. And I really appreciate the way that you've answered the questions. I also want to thank everybody in the chat here, because there's been, a great discussion going on in the chat. There's been other experts in the chat, like Stacy, answering questions. It's been wonderful. It's really fantastic. By the way, if you're interested in actually getting started with ABM, I want to put something in the chat for you, and that is we're actually going to be running a masterclass on ABM in the third quarter. So it starts in July. It's a 12-week program. You can learn more about it through the link that I just put in the chat. And it's really, I think, a kind of good way to get started. And it'll be a collaborative session. So you'll be doing it with 3 or 4 other companies that are non-competitive. Obviously, we'll make sure that happens. Okay, so we're now at the end of session 3. We're going to take a 30-minute break. And when you come back, we're going to focus on operations. So the whole area of building a go-to-market engine. And so the topic is, how do you build that one that goes beyond expectations? And they're going to talk, the panel's going to talk about how sales and marketing can be structured to be most effective. We're going to talk about the alignment issue again, and then what processes are critical to that success. So again, I'm going to put a link back to the main summit page in the chat, and look forward to seeing you. You'll see Ben again, and Kelly, thank you. Really appreciate it. And catch up with you guys soon. Everybody else, see you in 30 minutes. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.